All right, we're back. My apologies. I clearly need to get a class in how to invite friends. Embarrassing. I apologize. Ugh. I'll tell you what we can do next is absolutely set up a time where we can formally get together, start this thing officially, and move forward in a proper way. Um, right. Right. Where were we? My apologies on the blip. As you can tell, this is not my actual forte, though I will be growing in skill as time moves on, as far as our perception is concerned with time. So, we were talking about a protocol of synthesis. And again, here we go. My apologies. Hooray, hooray for technology. First, when it comes to this protocol, we got to know the landscape. The entire conversation itself is protective. Just expanding our awareness is a great place to start. Ah, God bless the friends in the world, you know. Thank you for letting me know just how low on the totem pole of tech that I am. Thank you, friends. But so knowing the landscape, which is something I obviously don't know on YouTube, but I am slowly figuring that out. Taken one step at a time, putting one foot in front of the other, moving forward. The entities described, whether watchers, the Nine, or demonic figures like Asmodeus, operate most powerfully through ignorance. So we want to banish ignorance as much as I can. Hey, thank you for powering through and coming back. I appreciate it. What I think we can do is actually formally set up a time where the two of us can discuss this together. That's something I would be very interested in. And tell you what, reach out to me. Let's figure out a good time because it very much seems like you've got something to add to this conversation that I am very much interested in and would like to know. I cannot appreciate you enough for being here and sticking around for this wonderful rabbit hole that we are going down. Muchos gracias to you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, where were we? Knowing the landscape. Right. They operate most powerfully through ignorance. Those that are not, in humans' most paramount interest. They're not here to hook us up. They're here to hook themselves up and use us as vessels. No bueno. They operate through ignorance. So the moment we can name, categorize, and understand what we're dealing with in any better form or fashion than just calling everything demons, they may very well be those, though. I mean, that's not, hey, they exist, right? They are around. Cheers to over unity. Yes, my sweat glands alone are over unity. I seem to pump out far more than I drink in. We're all little over unity sweat devices. Anyway, the moment you can name, categorize, and understand what you are dealing with, you are already on stronger ground. Yes, Raphael Tatobias, what the fish organs were before any demon appeared. Right, the 5 Ps, prior preparation, prevents piss poor performance. Maintain continuous consciousness. The Hesychast Jesus prayer is one form of this. Ethical integrity and intellectual honesty are others. I am happy to admit I don't know shit, but I am interested and willing to explore with honesty. All good. Hacha. Happy Thursday. So, the goal is a consciousness that is never genuinely vacant, never in the dissociated, emptied state that the entities require. Trance practices, unless conducted with exceptional preparation and community support, open exactly these gaps these entities exploit. And Dr. Heather Lynn wrote this fantastic article all about this, how way back when Egypt, Sumer, and, surrounding civs, they all had this tech, right? They all had this stuff, but they were doing it in an incredibly measured and controlled way. Once you hit, the Frankists and beyond, it becomes kind of unfurled. And Dr. Heather Lynn talks about how this similar technology is what Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard were up to in the desert. And they were not doing it with the appropriate amount of peeps or the right kind of tech, spiritual or otherwise. They wrote to Crowley and they were like, "Yo, Crowley, look what we did. We did this cool thing. Check it, check it." And Crowley was like, "What's the matter with you, man? I wouldn't even do that. That's nuts. You went." Crowley I'm pseudo quoting him now, but he basically said, "Hey, you've gone farther than I ever would, could, did. And I don't think that's such a good idea." And that's coming from Crowley himself, the man who was a boundary breaker from the word go. All right. So number three, operate through relationship, not isolation. I'm definitely down with this, and I am finding the more I'm able to be with individuals in any form or fashion in this kind of milieu of conversation, the better and more motivated I am at sharing this information and learning from the wise human beings that are out there that I desperately want to learn more from. However, I will also say that, like in the tarot and other esoteric practices, there is value in isolation for a time. You got to go back within and rest and process, metabolize, digest, and get rid of the dross. I mean, that's alchemization right there, right? Food into poop. So we got to operate through relationship, not isolation. The Watchers descended to Mount Hermon and swore their oath in secret. The Nine operated through isolated channelers in private laboratories. Technically, there were other people around, but they certainly were not doing the process the way that was described, or at least, yeah, depicted in ancient times. It was different. And also, there's that whole CIA MK Ultra connection. You know, the Nine, man, that book is something. The Only Planet of Choice. So the Nine operated through isolated channelers in private laboratories. Asmodeus attacked in private space in the marriage bed. Every entity in his territory operates through isolation and secrecy. Those aliens show up in the middle of the night and swipe us from our beds. They don't do it in the middle of the day and say, "Hey, you want to be taken? You looking for an adventure? We could use some of your genetic material. Want to join?" They don't do that. They just go right in the middle of the night. That ain't cool. So, authentic spiritual community, whether a religious congregation, a genuine teacher student relationship, or accountable friendship, provides witness and correction that entities cannot survive. Four, ground in the particular and the practical. Tobias was on a practical errand to recover money. He was not seeking mystical experience. He loved Sarah for Sarah. He loved her in particular for her, not the idea of love like so many teeny boppers may do. The entities in this discussion consistently operate through abstraction. And let me tell you, there's a whole bunch of abstraction in that book. I will not stop ragging on The Only Planet of Choice. Yeah. Um, the entities in this discussion consistently operate through abstraction, grand cosmic narratives, collective energies, universal principles. The specificity particular, the specific, excuse me, the specifically particular, this person, this task, this moment, this commitment grounds consciousness in a way that resists the abstract sweep of cosmic claims. Number five, we could invoke Raphael specifically. This is textually grounded and not merely symbolic. Raphael's function, confirmed in both Tobit and the Testament of Solomon, where Asmodeus himself names Raphael as what frustrates him, is precisely the protection of human love, health, and life from demonic interference. The name itself functions as what the sigil that we had previously discussed encodes, the divine healing principle made present. In both Jewish and Christian traditions, this invocation of Raphael by name is the specific counteroperation to Asmodeus type interference. Number six, cultivate the opposite of what the entities exploit. They exploit lust. Corn, cultivate committed love. They exploit intoxication. Pass me that bottle. Cultivate sobriety and clarity. Not all the time. You gotta live your life, but, measure it. Be responsible. Easier said than done. I completely understand. They exploit secrecy, so cultivate transparency. Hey, that's one of the things we are doing here. You know what I'm saying? We are doing this transparently. I am who I am, and I'm here because this information I find to be important. I think it's important for us to discuss this stuff. However, out of my depth I may be, I'm slowly able to find my footing along with you. Now, cultivate the body as a temple. They exploit passive receptivity, cultivate active discernment. And that word discernment, man, that is tantamount. They exploit isolation, cultivate community. Each perversion they operate through has a precise, authentic counterpart that is structurally inaccessible to them. Number 7, understand Hathor in her proper function. This is cool. Here we go. The force that entities hijack, erotic attraction, ecstatic experience, the crossing of the boundary between inner and outer, is not itself the enemy. Suppressing Eros entirely doesn't protect you. It just leaves that field unmanaged. Can someone say the shadow? The Egyptian priests of Sekhmet Hathor knew they had to work with the eye's power, not pretend it wasn't there. The goal is not the elimination of erotic, ecstatic, or connective experience, but its proper orientation toward the genuine other, towards specific love, toward the divine source that those experiences, rightly held, actually point to. Hathor, in her proper function, is herself a form of grace. Sekhmet, unmanaged, is the same force becoming catastrophic. The path that pulls you on equal or stronger footing. Awesome. The path that puts you on equal or stronger footing is not a counter ritual that matches the fallen tradition's technology. It is a mode of being. Active, integrated, discerning, relational, truth aligned, and specifically loved. That constitutes the opposite of the vacancy they require. There's no gap in a life fully, consciously, and lovingly inhabited. It reminds me of, I'm pretty sure it's St. Thomas Aquinas, though it could be St. Paul. Love and do what you will. Not bad. So I asked then, what questions am I not asking here? Where are my blind spots? How else can we look at this? What other angles are relevant to understand this even better? And we move on. Thread 1, question 1, the human who ascended. This was pretty cool. Who is Enoch? And why is he the most important figure in this entire conversation? This is the most glaring gap. We have been discussing the book of Enoch extensively without properly examining Enoch himself and his pivotal figure. And he is the pivotal figure that answers almost everything. Big fish. Enoch is the one human in all of this who went the other direction. The Watchers descended illegally from divine to human. Enoch ascended legally from human to divine. Genesis 6:24 says simply, Enoch walked with God and he was not, for God took him. No death, no body, a human being taken directly into the divine presence. In later Jewish mysticism, Enoch becomes Metatron, the highest archangel, the one called the Lesser Yahweh, which is trippy, who sits at the boundary between God and creation, and through whom all divine transmission to humanity passes. He holds the celestial records. He's the angelic scribe, and he was once a man. This is the complete answer to my good guy ascension question, not as a theory, but as a documented case. A human being, by walking continuously with God, became the very archangel through whom divine knowledge legitimately reaches humanity. The Watchers came down through desire. Enoch went up through righteous relationship. Metatron is the proof of concept that human consciousness can cross the ontological barrier in the upward direction and return transformed rather than consumed. What happened when Enoch tried to intercede for the Watchers? This is one of the most theologically devastating moments in all of 1 Enoch, and almost no one discusses it. The Watchers imprisoned are desperate. Come on, Enoch. They they come to Enoch, a human, and ask him to write a petition and intercede for them before God. He does. He sits at the waters of Dan and reads the petition. Then the divine response comes, and it contains one of the most profound reversals in all of sacred literature. God tells Enoch, "You ought to petition on behalf of humans, not humans on behalf of you. Why have you left the high, holy, and eternal heaven and lain with women and defiled yourselves with the daughters of men?" God speaking through Enoch to the fallen. The Watchers, beings of a higher ontological order, are asking a human to intercede for them. The hierarchy has inverted. A human, through righteous relationship with God, has become more authoritative before the divine throne than the fallen divine beings. This directly answers the question of human footing against such entities. The path of ascension that Enoch represents doesn't just put a human on equal footing, it puts them on superior footing. And the Watchers themselves knew it. All right, thread number 2, the Nephilim's afterlife, where demons actually come from. What happened to the spirits of the Nephilim after the flood killed their bodies? This is a missing link between the Watcher tradition and the ongoing demonic interface that we have been discussing, and almost no popular treatment mentions it. Did you ever see the movie Noah? They give a particular perspective to this whole situation. It wasn't that good of a movie. I'm gonna be honest. It was interesting. Some of the visualizations were cool, but the pacing was off, man. Okay, 1 Enoch 15, 8 through 12 gives an extraordinary answer. God tells Enoch the Nephilim were born from the union of divine spirits, the Watchers, and human bodies. When their bodies were destroyed in the flood, their spirits, being of mixed divine and human nature, had nowhere to go. They are neither fully angelic, so they can't return to heaven, nor fully human, so they can't go to the place of the dead. They become wandering spirits. Yes, absolutely. I can. Yes. I can see you and I appreciate you. Muchas gracias. They became wandering spirits, the demons that afflict humanity from that point forward. Yeah, and just in case you didn't hear, let's set up a time where we can actually officially set up a dual stream. I'd be down for that. Send me a message when this is all over. This means every demon in the tradition, including Asmodeus, might be a Nephilim spirit. Maybe. I think there's a lot more out there than just this, but this is just my opinion. Not a fallen angel proper, but the disembodied offspring of the Watcher Union. Ah, yes. So Asmodeus seems like, you know, born of the union, not actually of the fallen. The motivation framework shifts completely. They're not beings who chose to fall, they're the beings who never had a choice about existing, trapped between worlds, driven by half divine, half human hungers that produce them. Asmodeus's obsessive, possessive behavior towards Sarah makes perfect sense in this framework. He's not an angel enacting an ideology. He's a disembodied spirit that once had a body, is desperate to re enter the material world through any available mechanism, channeling, and expresses that desperation through the erotic possession that was the very origin of his existence. It's a little sad, to be honest. Got it. Thank you. No, that's right. Absolutely. Agree. Where were we? Where were we? This thread connects directly to everything we discussed about entities requiring human bodies as apparati and explains why they need them. Thread 3, the legitimate knowledge transmitter. Who is Thoth? And is he the Egyptian counterpart of both Raphael and Enoch? Interesting take. Thoth or Thoth or Toth or Hoth, Thoth, is the figure in Egyptian theology who does legitimately what the Watchers did illegitimately. He is the god who brings back the distant eye, Sekhmet, the figure sent by Ra to restore the broken connection between divine power and its source. We identified this as Gabriel's role in the Abrahamic tradition. The god of writing, wisdom, sacred knowledge, and all transmitted knowledge, the legitimate teacher. the one who weighs the heart at the judgment with Ma'at, the arbiter of truth. The teacher of Isis, who uses his knowledge to resurrect Osiris, the most powerful magical act in Egyptian mythology. In the Hermetic tradition, love getting into this stuff, identified as Hermes Trismegistus, thrice greatest Hermes, the author of the Emerald Tablet and the 42 Hermetic texts, which became the foundation of Western esoteric philosophy, sometimes identified as an earlier incarnation of Enoch himself in syncretist traditions. Mm. The Emerald Tablet's central teaching, as above, so below, as below, so above, is the precise theological principle that underlies everything we've discussed about the relationship between divine and material realms. Thoth is the figure who holds and transmits that knowledge without crossing the boundary himself and without requiring human bodies as apparatus. The question you haven't asked is Thoth a third figure alongside Raphael and the Watchers, a third model of how divine knowledge reaches humanity. This goes into all of this idea of how many times has this occurred to us as a species. Is this all just a retelling and different perspectives of a single experience? Or are we receiving wave upon wave of these kinds of activities? I don't know. But it sure feels like because it feels like something else is going on, man. It feels like something wacky is going on, and it seems to have happened to us more than once. And it might explain why we are, or some of us have a compulsion to just lay down, give up, and open ourselves to whatever might be presenting as something, again, presenting as more powerful, presenting as divine. And, speaking of that, I do integrate a little bit of a Betty Andreas and Luca's experiences into this. I do not agree with the take that was provided, but the information provided along with it overlays this idea of a presentation of divinity, of a higher order, in order to receive the acquiescence of the individual they abducted. Again, abducted. Okay. So we got Thoth Hermes it gives knowledge through the written transmission of cosmic principles. The book, the text, the sacred knowledge, all three are operating at the same problem. How does what is above reach that which is below? They represent three radically different answers with radically different consequences. Thread number 4, Matsema and the deliberate permission. In the Book of Jubilees, why does God leave 1/10 of the fallen angels' spirits free? And who asked for that? The Book of Jubilees gives an account of the aftermath of the flood that is profoundly different from 1 Enoch and directly relevant to your question about the good guy protection. After the flood, the Nephilim spirits, the demons, began afflicting Noah's descendants. Noah prays, God sends his angels to bind all the demons in the pit. Then a figure called Matsema, the chief of the demonic spirits, approaches God and makes a legal argument. If all the spirits are bound, he cannot fulfill his function of testing humanity. He asks that 1/10 of the spirits be left free. God agrees. 1/10 the demonic spirits remain free on earth, specifically to test, afflict, and be available to those who choose to use them. This is a radically different cosmological structure from what most people assume. The demonic interference is not an accident or a cosmic failure. It's a deliberate permission granted by divine authority with a specific functional purpose. The implication? The question is not, how do I avoid all supernatural contact? But how do I navigate a cosmos that is intentionally structured to induce testing zones or include testing forces? Tight. Appreciate. Matsema is also identified in some scholarship with the figure who hardens Pharaoh's heart and who tested Abraham. Roles traditionally assigned to Satan, but in Jubilees he's neither omnipotent nor beyond divine control. He's permitted adversarial function. Understanding this completely reframes the spiritual warfare question. Thread 5, the feminine as the hinge point. What is the specific role of the sacred feminine in both the exploitation path and the ascension path? And are Sophia, the Shekinah, Isis, and Mary pointing at the same thing Hathor points at? We touched on the Shekinah Hathor parallel, but this thread deserves its own full excavation. Across traditions, the divine feminine appears as the hinge point, the principle through which the divine intersects with the material world, and in every tradition, that hinge point is simultaneously the site of the greatest vulnerability to exploitation and the site of the deepest path of legitimate ascension. So we look at some angles here. Sophia in Gnosticism, her fall into matter creates the demiurge and the imprisoning cosmos. Her restoration is the goal of Gnostic salvation. She is both the cause and the problem and the solution. Cause of the problem and the solution. The Shekinah in Kabbalah, the feminine divine presence that dwells in the world. When Israel sins, the Shekinah goes into exile. When Israel returns, the Shekinah returns. The entire Kabbalistic project of Tikkun Olam, Tikkunolam, world repair is what that means, is about restoring the Shekinah to union with the masculine divine. Isis, the supreme magician who uses Thoth's knowledge to reassemble Osiris's body and resurrect him, she is simultaneously the mother of Horus, the legitimate divine order, and the most powerful operative force in Egyptian magic. Mary, Christianity, the Theotokos, or God-bearer, the human woman who's willing to consent, let it be done to me according to your word, becomes the hinge point through which the divine enters the material realm in the most radical possible way. Her fiat, her decision, let it be done, is the counter pattern to Eve's transgression and to the Watchers. Here it says the Watchers' forced descent, although only some of them were forced in that covenant they decided, they chose to come down here. They weren't forced. The question your conversation is circling without quite landing on is there a specific relationship between the divine feminine principle and the mechanism the fallen entities exploit? If Hathor governs the territory of divine human erotic connection, and if that is exactly what the Watchers and the Nine exploit, then the divine feminine is not incidentally present in the story. She is structurally central to it. The fallen pattern is the violation of the feminine as the interface. The ascension pattern is the restoration of the feminine as the properly functioning interface. Tobias and Sarah's marriage, restored by Raphael, is not merely a love story, it's the restoration of the proper relationship between the masculine and feminine as the vehicle through which divine blessing flows into the material world, the precise inversion of what Asmodeus is doing. Thread 6. The Geography of Contact. Why Mount Hermon specifically? And are there other geographic contact zones that appear consistently across traditions? The Watchers descended to Mount Hermon, a specific peak at the intersection of modern Lebanon, Syria, and Israel, approximately 9,232 feet tall. That seems like an important number. This is not symbolic geography. Archaeological excavations at the summit have found remains of a significant ancient temple, one of the highest temples ever built in the ancient world. The site was a major cult center in the ancient Near East. The name Hermon derives from a Hebrew root meaning sacred or consecrated. The area was associated with the Bashan region, which biblical texts treat with unusual theological weight. Og, the king of Bashan, is described as the last of the Rephaim, giants or Nephilim descendants. The Psalms describe Bashan as a place of particular divine intensity. This raises questions not asked. Are specific geographic locations genuine contact zones? Interesting question, especially as we look at it in modern context, where we're seeing heightened UFO activity in certain areas across the world. Though, let's be fair, that whole drone situation was global, was going on over everywhere. So, but, as we look at the UFO literature, they do tend to show up in the American Southwest as well as the Pacific Northwest. You've got the supposed portal in Sedona, um, and around Catalina Island, there's a lot of activity. So maybe, and I might mention it in here, but the book The Portal by Patrice Chaplin talks about a specific portal onto Mount Canigou, which it seems like a specific place to me. A lot of lady sightings happen in and around that area. Could the lady be Hathor? Also, Hathor, Chris Bledsoe. Bledsoe's Hathor. Hathor here. Hmm? Connections, connections. Hathor of the Nine. The Nine, I tell you. Anyway, this raises a question not asked. Are specific geographic locations genuine contact zones, places where the boundary between ontological levels is thinner, or is the geography symbolic? Both and. If the Watchers chose Hermon deliberately, what was it about that specific location? Does the ancient cultic use of high places, mountains, elevated temples, reflect genuine phenomenology, there it is, of contact, or is it purely metaphorical? The consistent pattern across traditions, Sinai, Hermon, Olympus, Heliopolis, Glastonbury, Delphi, suggests that ancient peoples detected something real about specific locations as sites of heightened contact. Whether this is geological, astronomical, or purely psychological is one of those genuinely open empirical questions in this territory. All right, thread 7, last thread for the evening. I'm sweating like a champ here. Thread 7, sound as both technology and protection. Why does music appear on both sides of this equation, as a summoning technology and as a protective force? This is one of those most underexplored threads in everything we discussed, and it's an interesting thing to consider when it comes to the music that we expose ourselves to. Hathor's primary instrument is the sistrum, a rattle percussion instrument used in her temple worship. The sound of the sistrum was believed to drive away malevolent forces and summon Hathor's presence. It's simultaneously protective and invocatory. David's lyre playing drove away the evil spirit from Saul. In 1 Samuel 16:23, this is an explicit exorcism by music in canonical scripture. The Watchers taught music, specifically enchantments in singing, according to some traditions. Hey, you phonate at certain levels. Have you heard of the tone F sharp? The Festival of Drunkenness used music, along with alcohol, to transform Sekhmet back to Hathor. That pacification of destructive divine power through sonic ritual. The Pythagorean tradition held that specific musical intervals, the music of the spheres, corresponded to the planetary intelligences, the same intelligences associated with the archangels, and used in constructing sigils via magic squares. The solfeggio frequencies and the ancients use the solfeggio frequencies and the ancient use of specific tones in healing are part of the same tradition. Dr. Lin's article, Specific Geometry of Ritual, includes sonic geometry. The frequency and rhythm of the ritual creates the conditions. The question, is there a precise theory of how sound operates on the boundary between ontological levels? That makes me think of the buzz. Same. Hey, Nuclear, what's going on? Nuclear, it's wonderful to see you here. Welcome, welcome back. Might be on the jankiness of my manipulation with YouTube. Uh, I got you. No problem. We'll figure it out. But okay, so back to Dr. Lin. Dr. Lin's article, Specific Geometry of Ritual, includes sonic geometry. The frequency and rhythm of the ritual creates the conditions. Nuclear. Cheers. The question, is there a precise theory of how sound can operate on the boundary between ontological levels? Why does the sistrum drive away malevolent forces while Hathor's festival music summons her? What is the difference between sound that opens a door and sound that closes one? Now I remember what I was going to say. Most of the time, when sound is involved in abduction cases, the sound that I have read about most often is a buzzing sound. It sounds like a whole bunch of bees, but it is an ever-present buzzing sound that seems to come through. Um, what is the difference between the sound that opens a door and the sound that closes one? This thread connects directly to the physics of consciousness, to the resonance theory underlying the sigil construction we discussed, and to one of the most practically applicable aspects of this entire territory. Woo! All right, everybody. I'm sweating up a storm. I'm just so grateful. I am grateful that I get to share this information with cool people, going back and forth. Good times, great oldies. We're gonna do this again. I will announce a little better when it will happen again. It's not gonna be tomorrow. It might be over the weekend. It probably will be sometime next week. At the very latest, we're doing this on Tuesday. Tuesday night, if not sooner. We will be back, and we will talk about thread 8, the prophecy versus channeling distinction. Ah, this is great. Thank you for hanging. Stay sweaty, stay cool, and I'll catch you on the next one.